Okay, we'd like to welcome you to BeMoreNews.com. This is the week of the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. And we have one of the city fathers, one and only Larry Gibson. How are you, Professor?
I'm okay.
Did you go to Washington on Wednesday?
No, but I went 50 years ago. But I was already in Washington 50 years ago. So I was a student at Howard University, and I participated in the March on Washington. But I did not hear in present the I Have a Dream speech. I mean, I'd seen King and many of the other leaders speak before. I went early, spent about 2.5 hours, heard maybe about the first 3 or 4 speeches. Then I went back up to the Howard University campus and ended up hearing this famous speech on the television in the basement of Douglas Hall at Howard University.
So 50 years later, what does it mean?
Well, it means a lot. I think that...
Is this post-racial America?
Well, that's a different question. This was a march for freedom and for jobs. The freedom that they were referring to then was indicated in the legal supported Jim Crow. Much of that has been accomplished, but I think we all know that we've got much more work to do on the other half of that agenda as it relates to jobs.
Jimmy Carter sure laid it out and talked about the prison industrial complex, said that Martin Luther King Jr. would be making noise about all these black people locked up in America.
Jimmy Carter gave an excellent speech. There were several good speeches. I thought the president's speech was very good.
What'd you like about it?
About the president's speech?
Yeah.
Is, I think, a combination of things. That series where he talked about the various elements of the society that were marching, and he broke it down to the individual parent, community leader, political figure who does something, or someone who just creates a nonprofit that does benefit. I think that this economic part of the agenda is something that has to be multi-level, multi-involvement, and requires a different kind of soldier, a different kind of marcher. And I thought that was the high point of his speech, telling the individual person, here is what you can do. You don't have to be just a spectator. You are a marcher. It's great when you are doing, and he indicated a variety of things that betterment the society. You are helping to realize that dream.
In this March on Washington, one of the themes reiterated was nonviolence.
Well, the themes were
the key
jobs
speaker
and employment, but the technique of nonviolence, of course, was an important part of that phase of the
and that was '63, and years afterwards, that war in Vietnam was going on.
Right. And,
something very violent.
There's no question that the civil rights movement, I think, taught the anti-war activists how to protest.
Well, the interesting thing is that
things sort of ended up merging together, and remained at the center of it. Was this technique of nonviolent use of one's body.
So then the big international news is Syria, and this country's thinking of bombing
I'm
Syria.
not ready on the day to sort of deal with the international news.
Well, how are you going to not deal with the international?
Because I'm not. I'm here talking about the March on Washington.
That's doesn't have international implications?
And that's what I'm going to talk about.
Okay, all right. Well, you the boss. You the boss. But, in the climate of nonviolence, it's just interesting that the conversation of war is in the background. Okay.
Well, we are a society and a world that has lots of different issues. We can't act as if there's only one matter involved. But
well, I do have one pointed question for you. And this is a criticism coming out of the black community. A lot of black people are looking for the president to say a little bit more encouraging and empowering words to the black community.
I think the president would have made a terrible mistake.
Well, is he going to make that mistake at all in his 8 years?
In the wrong sort of way at that event. That was essentially primarily looking backwards and recognizing what people did.
Well, we got more black people locked up now than then.
But
doesn't that make it more of a state of emergency?
finish the answer to my question as to why I think the president's pitch was right. Certainly, there are times when it calls for the president to set forth an agenda, to propose legislation, to be highly political in the process by which it's going to be accomplished. But I don't think that
was Morehouse College the one. That's where
at that time.
I mean,
it's been more than one time. He's done it from the Oval Office. He does it in his State of the Union. There are many opportunities for the president to set forth a specific agenda and even propose a legislation. I don't believe that his speech at this event
when will it be appropriate?
He's done it repeatedly in the past, and I think it will continue to be. But that event, I thought that the president's pitch was exactly correct.
Okay. Anything else you want to add about this week's March on Washington?
No, except that if I'd known, it was going to be the most important, if not certainly one of the most important speeches in American history, I would have hung around for it. I mean, of course, I could not see that there would be an assassination, and could not see things that that were going to develop. I guess if we all had 20/20 hindsight, we would adjust many of our actions. But I'm happy that I was there for the march, that I did march. At that time, I headed something called the DC Students for Civil Rights. It was a group of students from 8 Washington-based colleges and universities, and our main job was to lobby for legislation because these students came from all over the country, and under the direction of Joe Rao and Clarence Mitchell, we organized essentially a student lobbying effort. We even had our own filibuster. We had on the grounds of the Washington Monument the students filibuster for civil rights. This involved students Howard and George Washington and Gallaudet and Dunbarton College and American University, and so I'm very proud of that. There's something else, and I'm really going to post this on my Facebook page, and that is a photograph in which I'm leading a march right after that church bombing in Birmingham, in which those 4 youngsters were killed. To my knowledge, I think it's the first march I ever led. We'd been in the sit-ins and things like that since around 1960. But that September of 1963 march was an emotional event. And I'm so glad that I do have a photograph of it, because it was put on the front page of the Hilltop, which is the student paper at Howard University.
What do you think?
I'm going to post that on my Facebook.
What do you think Reverend Dr. King would think of the progress made in the 50 years?
I think that Reverend Dr. King would realize, would say that much progress has been made and there's still much more to be done.
Good deal. You're watching BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.